Hey guys, if you don't want to completely destroy your brand, then you have to avoid doing this. I'm Lambros from Station 5. I'm joined here with Mike Hamilton. Mike specialised in software testing, has been in the industry for over 15 years now, and has worked for some really high tier companies here in Sydney. Mike, how are you?
Good, very good. Hi guys.
Mate, what I wanted to talk to you about today is probably something that you hear about all the time. So I'm sorry to end your Monday with talking about more what you've probably done all day. What I want to talk to you about is the importance of user testing, but more specifically simulating software.
Yeah.
So making sure that when people are using your product, it's obviously been tested thoroughly before, but more so through simulations. Firstly, just for people who don't know much about simulating software, can you give them a rundown of what software simulation entails?
Yeah, no problem. A good example is that you might have a very popular user base or product or service, and you might be rolling out to 10,000, maybe 20,000 people, for example. They might log onto your website or your app at one time. Games are a good example of that. Popular games, they do well very quickly, like Pokemon recently. They have a lot of people logging onto that app at once. That means they have a very high volume user base, intense user base using the system. So the infrastructure of the software needs to support that. So it's not like you're launching a very small website that has about 10 users logging on over a month. It's not like that. You need to make sure you simulate these type of users logging onto your software before you launch.
For the smaller companies out there, the startups, we'll get back to the larger companies, but for the smaller companies, the startups, what sort of kind of, I guess, what can you give them as a takeaway message as to how this does affect them? Because obviously, I would presume, but correct me if I'm wrong, it wouldn't, based on what you've just said, it wouldn't be as applicable to the smaller organizations, but I know there is still a place for it.
Yeah,
Can you tell us
exactly.
about the smaller case first?
Yeah, definitely. If you are launching something, you might want to do a small scale test. I've seen software where it's 10 people have logged onto it and it's actually had response times up to a minute because the code wasn't optimized correctly to do it. So I know a lot of advice out there, and I've seen some developers give advice online, and also businesses that I've seen saying, no, you just got to test with one user or one person logging onto the software, and that's enough before you launch. If it's a small type of website or software, you actually need to think about how it's going to respond under many users. So with small business, you don't have to spend a lot of money on doing that. It's just something you work with a developer on, right? And call it out and know your risk. So you can understand what you're exposed to. It doesn't take a lot of money. Like there's some tools out there, free tools that developers can use that can just simulate this very quickly when they finish the software. I know, was it Load Impact is a website I use. They've got a free function on their website on the homepage. You just type in the website and it goes to the website just for 5 minutes and loads about 20 to 30 users onto the website for a 5 minute period.
Yeah.
To see how it runs, and you can just do that quickly to see how it runs.
You can do simulations though. I know from my experience as well, things like user logins and registrations, you can do simultaneous logins or registration at the same kind of bracket of time.
Yeah.
And you can kind of just see the load times go up and up gradually. But it's all about simulating how many users you realistically anticipate.
Yep.
Assuming some sort of margin of error in your assumptions and then building from there, yeah?
Yeah, it's like you might be launching a business or a website for the first time. You might not have a high volume of users, but if maybe you're a couple of months into your new business and you're selling a product or service and you decide to do a marketing campaign, you've got to be mindful of all the people logging onto your website after you've launched the campaign. All of a sudden you get this influx of people coming on. So for example, if you and I got invited to a local network in the morning to talk about a product or service and that maybe reaches a couple of million people, and you give your website name in the morning, people are going to log on to that very quickly in one hit. They see it on national television, and and then all of a sudden, it's going to look pretty bad if the thing crashes or it responds slowly.
Well, it could damage your brand.
Oh, massively! Like you've got one opportunity to do something right. Make sure it's done right the first time. What I'm trying to say is know your risk profile before you launch something. Don't just dismiss something because it's too expensive or it's perceived to be too hard or you don't need to do it. Know where you're at with your brand. It's very important. I cannot stress it enough. Yeah. And look, to be honest, here in Australia, was it 2 weeks ago?
Well, I wanted to get into this. Yeah. So obviously we've got the small organisation we've spoken about. Using the census as an example of a much larger organisation. Yeah. I know this has been a topic of conversation for the two of us lately. Yeah. Tell us, using obviously that as a case study, the census in Australia of 2016, what could effective testing or simulations have done, and obviously what kind of takeaway messages are there for the larger larger organisations, the sort of organisations that I know you've got a lot of experience working with.
Yeah, look, for an example, the census, it got a lot of media attention because it's it's a very important thing to happen, right? You're getting something like 9 million households collecting information on one night or one day in this case. What happened there was that the infrastructure appears, I'm not sure actually what happened, but you can speculate. The infrastructure that supports it wasn't adequately configured correctly. The software that interacts with it potentially wasn't optimized correctly to handle that many people logging on. So as an example, in Australia for census, I know similar around the world, most people during the day log on and submit their details. I know you did. I went at night because I was pretty busy during the day. And a lot of people have their dinner in the evening, and at 6:30 onwards for a period of time for 3 hours, that's where the high peak period commences. And that's when you get all these 9 million households, and majority of them logging on.
Logging in at the same time.
All the same time.
Even though at a period of 2 weeks, they all wanted to check it out because it got in so much media attention.
Oh, huge amount.
Yeah.
And look, there's obviously, you can always speculate what happened, but usually it's the infrastructure and the software that sits on it that wasn't optimized and not working correctly. You've got to simulate these scenarios before you go live on these type of things. In this case, it's obviously it's a national government initiative, but you saw what happened with the media, and you saw what happened in the coverage it got. It was hilarious. So yeah, very interesting. A good case study to take note of.
Yeah.
Any type of business in any walk of life, everyone's subject to the same sort of scrutiny for their business when this happens.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, mate, we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us. As always, leave a comment down below if you've got a question for Mike or myself, and we'll do our best to answer it as soon as possible. Cheers.
Thank you.